Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the DS3 podcast series. My name is Bianca Grunbaum, and here today I'm very lucky to be joined by Kelly Jensen, who is the Career Services and Alumni Outreach Manager for the Halıcıoğlu Data Science Institute here at UCSD. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. So we're super excited to kind of get your perspective on the careers and the job market as it lies right now. But first, would you just mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Washington State. That's where I did my undergraduate degree. I still have a lot of connections there. And when I was going to school, on the side, I studied Spanish just on my own. And I decided to do my first study abroad trip to Costa Rica at the time. And I stayed with a family, and it really opened up my world to travel. And so over the next several years, or since that time, I still like to go study, but I've done educational programs in about 10 different countries. I've taught in Thailand and Chile, and I love to travel and learn about people and see what's out there. So that's something that's really important to me. I moved to San Diego in 2011, and I love it here. I did my master's degree at USD in nonprofit leadership and management, and I came over to UCSD. I started in the Career Center in 2020, and then I moved over to HDSI in 2022. So I've been working with students in the data science space ever since.
That's so amazing. Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely goes to show that you can have your background doesn't have to necessarily be linear to end up where you end up now. It's all about exploring what you're interested in and finding your way.
Absolutely. My background is anything but linear, but I think that has really prepared me for this role.
Right.
So, yeah. And on the side, aside from my professional experiences, I love photography. I love baseball. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a huge baseball fan. And I really enjoy art and spending time outdoors and hanging out with friends. And yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, I feel like we live in a great place for outdoors, art, all that stuff. So it's really, I feel very lucky to be here and reciprocate this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love San Diego.
I know, me too. It's awesome. Piggybacking off of that a little bit, before coming to UCSD and to HDSI, you've had a long career in nonprofit leadership and career guidance. How did you find yourself to be in that career?
So I have always been in the nonprofit and education space, usually in case management type roles or counseling type roles, working very closely with individuals from very different populations, maybe former foster youth. I've worked with refugees, I've worked with young kids, older kids, college kids, but usually in a way where we're working toward individual goals and developing potential, and how do we achieve those goals? How can we find success? And I really enjoy doing that, and I've learned that I've done some teaching, I've done some leadership roles, but what I really enjoy is the one-on-one. And so this role here at HDSI gives me the best of both worlds, because I do still get to do programming and teaching, but a lot of it is the one-on-one and getting to know students and helping them with their career journeys, and it's very fulfilling. Yeah, and I've as I mentioned, I've had a lot of transition along the way, and I've maneuvered many challenges in my own career. I know what it feels like to relocate and try to find a job. I know what it feels like to get laid off more than one time. Yeah. I know what it feels like to try to exit a very toxic culture.
Right.
I know what it feels like to have an amazing supervisor and not so good supervisors, and how do you work around that? I've worked internationally. So I've done a lot of different things that I think has been able to help me then guide students who are navigating some of those challenges as well.
I feel that makes so much sense to me, because we'll get into this a little bit later on too, but I am applying for internships right now and jobs, as I imagine many people are, who might be watching this. But I do think there's a lot to be said for the idea that it's not just the programming skills that they want in a job. It's also the soft skills that you bring, it's other experiences that you bring with you that are beyond just the actual definition of what the job role is. Yeah, it's a really important thing to recognize, and I definitely appreciate you sharing that insight. I think that's a very valuable part. Adding on to that, now that you're helping us find careers or reach out to alumni, things like that, they're more in the tech field, right? You're more focused on data science, stuff like that. Do you find that there's a big difference between your nonprofit career and like the tech industry? Or are there kind of some similarities still intertwined between them?
I think there's a lot of differences.
Yeah, that's what I would.
I think some of the similarities are, like you just mentioned, having the soft skills, being able to communicate, work as part of a team. Like, no matter what industry you go in, most companies or organizations are going to value that.
Right.
So wherever you can get that type of experience is helpful. I think the biggest difference is really what I've noticed is the resource disparity. In nonprofits, there aren't a lot of opportunities for internships. A lot of them are unpaid because nonprofits just don't have the resources to support that. And even when you become a professional in the sector, there's fewer opportunities for growth, which I think is really unfortunate because it's a really valuable space. But it's really cool on the other side, in the private sector and in technology in general, seeing how companies can plan ahead and have resources to have different types of internships for students so that they can learn and grow into hopefully full-time roles, and that they plan so far ahead for those because they have the resources to do it. That's probably been the biggest difference.
I think that's something that we take for granted a little bit when we're applying for these tech internships and stuff like that, because they don't have, we are all clamoring for these roles. There's going to be discourse about it's hard to get them, but I don't think that we appreciate that they exist, period, and that that's like a good thing in and of itself, because in nonprofit, I imagine there's a lot of the resources are being dedicated to furthering the mission that you guys have, which is great work, and it's very important work, but that there isn't as much funding or isn't as much incentive from the government, or maybe other investors, things like that, to keep it going as much as there is in the tech and the sector. So I guess that kind of segues into my next question a little bit, which might be the same answer, but has there been anything about the tech industry itself that has really surprised you, working in it or trying to get students to get careers in it? Has there been an element of that where you're like, I had no idea this existed?
I think the biggest surprise for me, especially when I transitioned from the Career Center, because I was working more with social sciences there, and that kind of aligned a little bit more with my background, so I was used to that. And then coming over to HDSI and realizing how early the recruitment cycle starts.
Okay, yes.
Because in nonprofit and government, it's more like, okay, we need someone now. And because tech companies are able to plan ahead a lot more and they have the resources, they can look ahead and say, we have so many spaces and we need to start doing this in the fall, get prepped up for the people we're going to bring on in the summer. So that took a little bit of adjusting for me, but now I get it. But I also understand, too, that recruitment isn't always only in the fall. And I want students to understand that, too, because sometimes they think if they don't have something secured by the end of fall quarter, then they're doomed and they're never going to find anything. And that's not the case. There's opportunities year-round.
And I feel like I can speak to that a little bit as well, because I'm actually a poli-sci double major along with data science. And so I'm also applying for internships that are more, computational, social sciences, things like that. And those recruitment cycles are all happening now. And they're happening applications are being left open later, stuff like that. Whereas tech, I feel like is very much your kind of
head start.
It's had more right out the gate, headstrong. Yeah, but that's a very interesting insight and something that's true. I do think. Yeah. And so I guess now, part of the reason we're so glad to have you on the podcast today is because, segueing into this, many of our viewers, I'm sure, myself included, are in the process of trying to find internships, trying to find jobs, things like that. In your role at HDSI, can you give us a little more insight into what you do to kind of help us find our careers, give advice, stuff like that?
Sure. Yeah, so I oversee all of the career services for HDSI, and as part of that, I do collaborate with other people on campus, other departments, but it includes individual advising, it includes monthly coffee chats, it includes workshops and alumni events, so a lot of different things there. But really, I think our dean always had the vision that HDSI would be a boutique experience for students so that they would have If you need personal questions answered or a very specific situation addressed in regard to your career, that you would have that, right? You can still go to the Career Center,
Right.
but you've got someone dedicated
Yeah.
to your specific needs. And so that's really what I try to do. But because I'm only one person
Sure.
and I serve all undergrad and graduate programs and alumni,
Wow.
how do we scale that? Well, we do that with the coffee chats, with the workshops. And so those are really opportunities to give a lot of really good broad information at a larger scale.
Yeah.
And then I'm available for students if they still need to access individual career coaching.
Yeah, I think that's so great because I feel, that like boutique experiences, you like talk about it, is something that I've definitely noticed at HCSI, right? You have the Career Center is amazing. Also, but the advising, like all different facets of the organization, I think do work to make sure that us as data science students feel appreciated and feel like we have people there to go to and that we aren't just kind of lost in the greater like engineering bubble, which is something I definitely do appreciate, and I think a lot of people do.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
It's a great department.
Yeah. We're very lucky to be part of it. And I do think also like the coffee chats and the workshops, I went to a couple last year and I need to take more advantage of them, but they are really good resources for us to kind of network within our own community. Because I think people underestimate how much talent there is at UCSD in our data science department. We have a lot of really very cool, faculty and staff, but also just graduate students and also, undergrads too, doing meaningful work, whether it be in startups or research, whatever it is. And I do think that there should be a concerted, there definitely is, that there's a concerted effort to start taking full advantage of it. I think it's great that we have these programs to do so.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I love what you said about going to some of these things and just networking with your peers.
Yeah.
I love to see that kind of naturally happening because those are the types of things you want to be doing to prepare yourself as you move forward.
And it's even like something as simple as I'm a tutor for a data science class and I see people in office hours. You make connections just talking to your tutors, talking to your peers. And that in and of itself is such a good way of just getting to know people. Because I do think there's a lot to be said for going on LinkedIn and connecting with people and reaching out to people, of course, it's very valuable. But it is also the personal connections that you develop with your friends and your teachers or your advisors, whoever it might be.
Absolutely.
There's a lot to be said for the in-person personal connection as well. Yeah. Awesome. So we kind of covered this a little bit. So besides like the workshops and coffee chats, would you say that there are any kind of like standout resources that HCSI provides for students who are actively looking for internships or jobs right now?
Oh, yes. I direct everybody to 1220
Yep.
because that was a platform that took a little while to get integrated, but it's all career services and it's only for data science students. So the information and resources and job listings in there are very specific to data science students. And I specifically want to highlight the resource library because I don't think it grabs people in. It's not super visually appealing within the platform, but there's so much good information there, whether you're not really sure what kind of jobs are available in this area or you're ready to vamp up your resume a little bit, how to get started on that, how to network. There's templates in there, there's videos, there's tons of interview prep information in there. And so I really recommend students take a dive into that when they are at various steps in their career journey because there's so much good information there. And then if they don't find what they need or if they're left with more questions or need a little bit more individualized support, then reach out to me and we can work on that. So that's definitely probably the biggest one I would recommend. We also recently launched InterStride, which that was in partnership with Jacobs School, the Career Center, and ISEO, because it's a platform that is really designed for international students. anybody can use it. They post
So cool.
jobs on there
Yeah.
for everybody.
Right. Yeah.
But the focus is really providing opportunities that are more accessible for international students because it's become a lot more difficult.
Right.
They also have webinars and things on there for international students navigating the job market in the U.S. And so it's a really, really good resource. And we worked really hard to bring it here. So please check out InnerStride.
That sounds amazing. I definitely will be. Like you just said, 1220, I've been on it. It's great. I think the resource library, I need to even check that out more, right? So, it's like good for everyone to learn about. And just also, I think there are roles in tech, in data science that are good jobs, that are important jobs, that aren't just at the flashy, like fitting jobs or whatever it is, right? I think that people don't tend to think about that enough.
Yeah.
And that it's not, obviously, you want to shoot for those one day, whatever it is, but that getting just an experience under your belt is really so
important.
Good. Right, so good to have.
Other resources, there's a lot of resources on campus outside of HDSI. I think anything that students can take advantage of where there's an employer that comes or alumni that comes to listen and learn and talk to those people and get contact information and make them part of their network, that is really, they're the best resources out there because they're the ones with their feet on the ground doing the work.
Right.
So it's really good to have those connections and be able to learn from those people as well. And then even I recommend to a lot of students to go to like meetup.com.
Yeah.
Find a group that interests you.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not on campus. There's a whole world out there.
Right.
There's lots of other people to meet and lots of
Sure.
ways to do it in ways that you can really enjoy, that don't have to just be academic or professional driven, but maybe you join a hiking club.
Yeah.
And you go for a hike and you meet someone who's working at Amazon who can give you some tips, right?
Yeah.
Like you never know.
You never know. And I know, kind of a shameless plug a little bit, we are having our data hacks for DS3 competition in a few weeks, I believe, like mid-April kind of. We're going to be having faculty and industry partners come and judge and come and be part of the panels that are going to be looking at the competition, stuff like that. And even just having people there who are part of the real industry and you can just go up and talk to and just make a little bit of a connection with, I think that is so valuable. And it doesn't have to be this really big thing of I'm looking for this job, I'm looking for these resources, stuff like that. Again, like just going on a hike and introducing yourself to someone, meeting somebody can be a really important in to a company, which is really great.
Explore and have fun.
Exactly, yeah. And make some connections through it. That's all that matters. And I think now segueing past the connections, but into like how we can, as students, best prepare to get an interview, get an internship, stuff like that. Can we do, a lot of us do leak code or personal projects, things that are geared towards showing off what we learned in our classes, our like real professional skills. Do you think that those are really helpful for landing internships? Or if so, like, are those type of projects that you advise us to be doing, or are there alternate things that we could be advancing our resume with?
Yeah, if you're doing projects that are impactful, absolutely. You've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So showcasing whatever skills that you've learned and how you've applied them in a practical setting or within a research project that you've done, absolutely, that's helpful. I think also any opportunity to engage, be proactive, use your communication skills, being involved in organizations like DS3, right? Anything where you're doing leadership, even sports, because you're showing that you take initiative and you're part of a team, you're willing to learn. So I think those are all really good ways to build your resume until you can get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
I think it's really important also to, as you're looking for opportunities, have a really good understanding of what the employer is looking for.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to tell you how to build your resume.
Agreed.
So if they're looking for some particular skills and you've got some of them but not others, well, then maybe that's something that you want to work on, whether that's through a project, whether it's through volunteering. There's lots of ways to do that. But I think really having a good understanding of what employers are expecting. They're not expecting you to be an expert when you come in for your first internship.
Right.
But there is going to be a certain level of skills that you need to have. And so understanding what that is so that you're well prepared when you do apply, that'll help get your foot in the door.
Yeah, I think that seems so important to me. I think it's also making sure that it sounds like to me reminiscent like college applications, that you're not just trying to show that, you have a good GPA or that you have the academic chops to do it. It's the leadership. It's also the soft skills. And I think people underestimate the idea that companies aren't just looking for people who can code. Because there are a lot of those, right? Which is great. We teach a good curriculum. We have a lot of good coders, stuff like that, which is awesome. But we need to have people who are actually also able to communicate and able to lead. And I think that is something that people sometimes don't take into account as much when trying to apply for these internships.
Yeah, agree with that. And I think the people who can do the coding and have the technology skills, but also have the soft skills, those are the ones that are going to be at an advantage.
Yeah.
Because companies look for both. They want both.
Yeah, that's great. And I think this is so like when we think about applying for internships and mentioning all of that, right? That's kind of like the ideal. Although a lot of us still get emails 2 months after we've applied saying, thank you, we fulfilled the position, or we filled the position, whatever it is, right? And when you look at that stuff, do you think that there is a certain hurdle that most students, or that, is the most common that you see students face when they apply for internships, when they're trying to get jobs, things like in that realm?
I think the most common, I don't know if it's a hurdle, I would say maybe it's more of a mistake, is that they're not being intentional. I hear so many students say, I've applied to at least 500 jobs and nobody's called me.
Yeah.
You're probably not paying enough attention to what you're doing. What's really important when you're applying for things to tailor your resume, to have a good understanding about the employer, what it is they're looking for, making sure your resume matches that, that you don't come across as generic. That will get your resume tossed, especially in this age of people using AI to both apply and to receive the applications. But so I do think maybe applying for fewer positions, but being really thoughtful about it and making sure that it's quality over quantity.
Yeah.
And then in parallel with that, making sure that you're also networking.
Yeah.
So when opportunities do come up, maybe you know somebody there or someone who knows someone there.
Right.
And you're able to use those connections to put a bug in someone's ear or, hey, can you introduce me to this recruiter or hiring manager? I just applied for this job and it looks so cool. So yeah, I think those are my biggest pieces of advice because I see so much that there's just not enough attention and intention put into the application and not enough networking. Especially when students are starting out, I see a lot of fear in cold reaching out to people and talking to people at higher professional levels. And you just gotta do it. Dive in and you get a lot better at it and it becomes more comfortable. And
I think that's so true, and I've even heard conversations where I've been told, oh, you should make an agent, like an AI agent, to apply for internships for you. And in my head, I'm just thinking, if an AI is applying for me and an AI is reviewing for applications, there's no real connection happening there. And that doesn't mean it's bad necessarily, but I do think there's a lot to be said for the intention in the application. And even if it's, following up with an email especially after an interview, but after even like an application, if you don't hear back, maybe in a few weeks, I don't know if it's something that you recommend or not. But
I mean, if you have, sometimes that information isn't accessible. You don't know where your application went. But that's why if you've got someone in your network, it makes it easier to follow up on something like that. And absolutely after an interview.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot to be said. I mean, as I see people I know, even back home or here, get internships, stuff like that, there's a lot to be said for the personal connections and who you know. And I do see people who get it off of merit, obviously, but I also see a lot of people who maybe their family knows somebody or they have a friend who works there or something like that. There's a lot to be said for that personal connection that I think we tend to underestimate in comparison to grinding out as many LeetCode problems as you can. I think there's a lot of focus on that type of achievement on your resume and on your development, which obviously is necessary for a technical interview or things like that in that realm. But there's lots to be said for just getting your foot in the door through personal connections.
Yeah, and if you've got all the information on your resume that they're looking for, and you've got those personal connections,
that's the
perfect combination, right? And it doesn't guarantee that you're going to land something,
sure,
but it's certainly going to help you.
And again, we're only second years, third years, fourth years, even the maximum, you're probably 22 or 23. You still have a lot of time to figure out what you want to do and figure out your lives. And I think that's also something that is important to remember and to keep in mind. Yeah. I know we touched on AI a little bit and how it's impacting the review process in terms of resumes and things like that. In terms of like actually the jobs that we're doing, so a lot of data scientists, data science students oftentimes go into software engineering jobs at the entry level or do things that are more rote code or in that area a little bit. From your perspective, as we see AI and things like Cursor and stuff like that become more popular in terms of writing code, do you think that the job market will be pretty severely impacted for entry-level roles for data science students?
Quite honestly, I don't think anybody can predict what's going to happen.
Yeah, valid answer.
It's moving so fast, and it's really hard to know where that's going to go. I will say, even just in the last couple years, I have seen fewer entry-level positions that come through. They're looking for people with higher degrees and higher levels of experience. And that doesn't mean there aren't entry-level positions out there. There are. Right. There's lots. And there's lots of internship opportunities. I just don't see as many of them. Okay. And I don't think that's a consequence of AI so much, maybe a little bit, but I think it's more just the job market. Yeah. Because the job market is going to be great and it's going to be not so great. And different sectors are going to experience gains and losses and all of that, and that's always how it's been. Right. And so I think you, as an early professional, just need to understand that and understand that you're going to have to navigate this not just now but in the future when things do change. So you want to keep yourself knowledgeable about what is happening in AI? Yes. How could this potentially affect me? How can I keep my skills sharp? And those kinds of things so that you remain competitive.
Right. And I completely agree. And I think that there's, again, like with AI, I think as data scientists, sometimes we feel like, we're the ones helping create this stuff. We're going to be okay. And I think that, like you just mentioned, there's a little bit of naivete to thinking that any job, in terms of any kind of big technological shift throughout history, right, whether it be the internet or, I don't know, industrial revolution, whatever you want to talk about, there's a little bit of naivete to thinking that any job is going to not have to change. Not necessarily meaning that there won't be jobs, obviously. That's a completely different statement. Yeah. But just knowing that evolve. And I think having to adjust our expectations of what our work is going to have to look like in the future is an important thing to get ahead of now. So we're not caught off guard when in 5 years, maybe entry-level software engineering jobs really aren't that common, right? Then it's asking, do you know how to use the AI that we're using? What else can you bring to the table besides just what we were looking for that got replaced? Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think that's a great answer and a good reminder to have that this has happened many times before in history. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the days. It'll be okay. And as we touched on this a little bit, as AI becomes more advanced in our job markets, becoming more involved in the jobs we're looking at, is there something that that we as applicants can do to make ourselves stand out against maybe an AI replacement or not necessarily against other candidates, but making ourselves seem like we deserve to have this position at all?
I think that question goes back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier as far as just being intentional. Yeah. Because if you come across as super generic or generated by AI, then I don't think that makes you stand out, right? That puts you back in the pile with everybody else who's doing it. Yeah. But if you have unique qualities, yes, you want to have the qualifications they're looking for, but is your LinkedIn profile creative? Yeah. Is it detailed? how well are you connecting with other people, and will people speak to your abilities and those kinds of things. So I think, yeah, just again, going back to the networking, being able to communicate, being very open-minded and willing to learn and willing to make mistakes, willing to ask questions. It's okay to make mistakes. And I think a lot of young professionals are really scared of making mistakes on their first job. And that's how you grow.
I completely agree with that. I think there's a lot to be, just like the idea that, especially in the age of AI, everything can be almost made perfect, right? It can be made, your response to an email, if you put it into ChatGPT, it'll tell you, oh, this is the better grammar, this is the better, makes it seem more professional. And that there is merit to just being a little bit of yourself and to making those mistakes and to get that learning. And even as like at a school level, as we're taking classes in our undergrad or in graduate, whatever it is, you are, by going through the actual exercise of doing the homework, of taking the tests, of learning, that's how you become a better data scientist, data science student. You don't get that when you just go through it with AI. Or this is not diverging to a little different conversation, but it's about, I think it relays back to your point about making sure you stand out and you don't seem generic, you don't seem AI generated. Because those are there is obviously comfort in being like other people and seeing that you fit with the grain, that you're following the same path that others are doing. But to an employer or to a grad school, whatever it is, they may not then see you if you just look like everybody else.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. It's a lot to think about, but it's all great stuff. Now, pivoting back a little bit to your own work experience and to how you've gotten here, after hearing all this great advice, seeing how you've applied it, right? Do you think that there's been a most valuable lesson that you, or like piece of advice that you have gotten or that you've learned in your career?
Yeah, I mean, learn a lot.
Yeah.
I think it's really important for people to follow their passion.
Yeah.
I've had students say, my parents want me to do this, but I don't really want to do it. And that pressure's got to be really hard, because the advice I give is you should do what you want to do, because this is what you're going to be pursuing and spending a lot of time on. And if you don't enjoy it, you're going to be miserable. Definitely follow your passion. And I mean, I've done that. I've gone in many, many different directions. I've always been in nonprofit and education, but I've worked at wineries. I've been a personal trainer. I teach Spanish. There's so many other things that I do because I love those things. And if I can incorporate them into my job, I will. You know, if there's any volunteer or affinity groups at places that you work, getting involved in that to make your job fulfilling, because you spend a lot of time there.
Yeah.
I think the other advice or lesson that I've learned is that it's not worth it to stay in a toxic culture.
Okay.
Or if you have a toxic supervisor, that can really physically, mentally, emotionally eat away and take the joy out of work.
Yes.
And you don't want that either. So I once had a job that I absolutely loved, but it wasn't the right culture. And I left it, and it broke my heart that I had to leave it, but I couldn't do it anymore. And so I think that's something that's a little bit hard for new professionals to understand, because it takes a little bit of time in the workspace to really understand what is a healthy work environment and what is not. And so if you get to a point that you identify, I'm not in a healthy work environment or I'm not being treated, then definitely do something about it, whether that's going to a higher level or making an escape and finding another job. There's a better place for you.
Yes.
And you deserve to be treated with respect and value and all of those things. So
I love that advice so much, because I think we get very caught up in the idea of just trying to find a job, trying to find something that we can make us some money that we can do. And I think we forget that in our society as it is right now, you are going to be working probably for the rest of your life, right? And so you do want to do something that you feel good about, that makes you feel that you enjoy it. You like going to work every day as much as you can. And that's incredibly important. And I think that there's also, it's just like you said, there's no merit to staying in a job that is going to make you feel bad about yourself, bad about your life, or whatever it is. There are things that are more important than just having maybe a job, right? And job security is obviously important too, but maybe not the end all be all, especially when you're in this young stage of your life.
Yeah. It's important to have a job and be getting that experience, but I think the argument can tend to be, is the money worth it?
Yeah.
I've known plenty of people who have earned really well and been miserable, but they're afraid to leave because where else am I going to make that kind of money?
Yes.
And my question is, well, do you need that kind of money?
Yeah. Right.
Or is your well-being more important?
Yes. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And I mean, in this like day and age, we have, companies like Meta and Google and Apple, all these things who, their jobs are very lucrative. They're very well-paying, awesome jobs. And they're great. You can get one, right? I mean, go ahead, try as much as you can. But that doesn't mean that's not the only key to success. And I think success can be defined a lot more internally than maybe a lot more intrinsically than it is just based on your job and your value, whether it become wealth or whether it is in terms of you can brag, I work at Apple or whatever it is. There's a lot more to be said for the way that the job makes you feel as a person and the work that you're doing. And I do think, tying back to your experience in nonprofits and work like that, I think that is incredibly important work. And it's something that we, maybe as, people in the tech field, don't completely appreciate. But there is more to the workforce, more to a job, more to life than just making the money. And just kind of advancing technology is obviously super important, but also thinking about how you can help others with your work and how you can make it into a job that not only is good for you in terms of your socially, in terms of your wealth, financially, all that stuff, but also good for you, I don't know, morally and as a person too. I think that's also an important thing.
I've talked to several students who are very interested in using data for good.
Yes.
And want to know what kind of opportunities are out there for that. And I think there will be more opportunities to come for sure. And I hope that nonprofits can get into a place where they are able to support roles like that, because I think it would only help them grow and be more successful.
For sure.
I mean, I love talking to students who are super mission driven. Yeah, that's where my heart is too.
I think it's so, be able to do what you do and have a focus, have a goal in mind is such a nice thing. I think it does really add to the experience of feeling complete in what you do. Yeah. And feeling good about that. Yeah, and this is kind of one of the last questions I want to ask is, this podcast obviously does cater to data science students. This is the Data Science Student Society podcast. But in general, beyond tech, is there any advice that you can offer to anybody looking for a job right now, anybody looking for an internship or trying to network? Like, I know we've touched on the soft skills a little bit, but generally, do you just have like a piece of advice for anybody?
Yeah, I think keep networking. Yeah. Across the board, just be persistent. Yeah. And understand that if you don't hear back from people, whether you're networking or you're applying for things, that it's not about you. Yeah. You're not a horrible person. It's the nature of how job search is. And you have to just know that. And you've got to have a little bit of a shell so that you can keep going and you don't take it personally, because rejection's going to happen. It's going to happen a lot. And so just know that's not a reflection of who you are. You just keep at it, keep talking to people, keep applying. And if you feel like you get stuck in a rut, come see me or go to the Career Center, get some support. Right.
And I've almost seen online like rejection being used as a barometer of success, in the sense that if you are getting rejected from things, that means you are trying. And that is that is itself a really good thing to be doing. So almost getting the rejection email means, okay, good job me, I've tried this thing. It seems counterintuitive, but it kind of is in a sense. I don't know. Yeah.
I feel that way, especially about interviewing. Yeah. Because that can be a big hit when you go to an interview and you're like, I feel like it did really well, and then you don't go to the next round or you don't get an offer. It's still a really valuable learning experience.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, it prepares you to do better the next time, or
Yeah.
maybe prepare a little bit differently, or if you get feedback that they said that you did really, really well, but there was just another candidate that they
Yeah.
were going to go with, great.
Yeah,
Then you
it's
did
all-
really
it's all, It's all
well.
positive, yeah.
It's hard not to get the offer. I've been
Sure.
through that many
Yeah,
times
right,
myself.
right.
But yeah, I think that is still, it's a step in the right direction.
Yes. And it's just about keep taking those steps.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yep.
Thank you so much for coming on. This was absolutely a wonderful talk. I so enjoyed it. And yeah,
too.
thank you so much for guys for tuning in as well. And I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank
Yeah.
you for having me,
Awesome.
and thank you.
Thank you so much.